Hi, hello, and welcome to The Far Side. I'm your host. My name is Austin. I hope that y'all had a good weekend. Your Eid al-Fitr was not filled with bombs and missiles. And if you celebrated the ancient Persian holiday of Nivrum, and you overthrew your Iranian government at the behest of the Israeli propagandists, good on you. That said, I've seen enough videos of like Iranian influencers in China and the US and all over the globe basically doing some version of like, yeah, this Khamenei guy's dead. Whoa, I mean, it means a lot. We don't like it that America's bombing us, but he's dead. It's like, huh. Interesting. And that's what makes, in my opinion, many elements of propaganda quite interesting, especially when you're watching it in real time, because so much of what we are dealing with right now is like the absolute peak of how propaganda works while you're trying to shape a narrative to get people to do what you want. Now, I mean, as your expert propaganda watcher here, I must say, we're going to continue our introduction process. This is part 2 for anyone that's coming into this. Part 1 is on the live streaming side of this app, however, or of this page. However, my upload speed at my office is hot dog shit. And I think we're going to have to not do lives until I have an upload speed that isn't making everything look like washed out spaghetti. Easier said than done. But we move on, alas. And I think I just need to record earlier in the week because, let's face it, most people don't want to hear about this stuff on their Friday and Saturday. At best, it's a Sunday type conversation. But so this is part 2, and we are going to be picking up at the tail end of the narrative laundering. Actually, sorry, narrative laundering was the spot we were going to get to next. However, just to recap a couple of things we went over last week, in case you were absent from class. This is about the architecture of modern propaganda, particularly how narratives are shaped. And part 1, we talked about things like narrative priming in the form of pre-narrative seeding. And just to recap, this is the foundational technique underlying everything else in modern day propaganda right now. The core principle of it, quote, shape the interpretive environment before the event you want to exploit, end quote. So that means that you will spend maybe a year or two seeding, say, anti-regime content into Tehran, into Iran, preceding something that you do, say, in January 2025, say, like with this thing called Soundboard, the Evin prison break. Evin is a political prison, or, I mean, just a catch-all prison near Tehran, in Tehran. And in 2025, there was the Evin prison strike, meaning something blew up and tried to let people out of Evin. And the Israelis, largely, I'm sure the United States and some other allies of Israel, were probably pumping in a lot of social media propaganda or just basic internet propaganda, blog posts, things like that. Anything you can pass off as a some element of authoritative information. Maybe it's an independent news journalism. Maybe it's something like Al Jazeera. You seed a bunch of op-ed pieces in their blog sections, or I don't really know how Al Jazeera works, but I know in things like Wall Street Journal or other more accredited institutions of journalism, you just have people talk shit in the op-eds, and that's where you sway people's opinions. Because in your actual articles, you have to do this thing called spin. Spin is different than pre-narrative seeding because spin is taking stuff after it's already happened and trying to frame it in such a way as to meet your political goals or your, goals with whatever or why ever you are trying to spin this thing. Just to use a off-the-wall example, I was talking with a friend about fitness journalism, mostly because I misinterpreted what he said as, hey, I'm into fitness, into the journalism, all these things, and I just heard fitness journalism, and I was like, okay, so clavicular and all these Looksmaxxers, we got to talk about this stuff because it is wild. But I think, in terms of spin, when you look at a lot of these young Looksmaxxer types, this is essentially a male spin or spin that is targeted to male audiences or consumers about why they need beauty products. It is more or less the same stuff that they have been selling or telling or advertising to women for the last 70 years. I would say beauty has probably been pretty similar since like the Victorian era, and you started getting a rash of new, I don't want to say technology, but new inventions for female beauty and advances in the science or the creation of makeup and other types of powders and elixirs and, diet tonics, all this stuff. Well, some of that stuff was literally like the original GLP-1, a tapeworm. You just ate a tapeworm egg and it hatched a fucking tapeworm in your body, and then you fucking shit it out or something. But, you just spin it as, hey, you take this little pill, you lose weight, and eventually you shit out the thing that made you lose the weight. So you spin it, yes, that is what happens if you have a tapeworm. You very likely will lose weight because the tapeworm is taking a significant portion of the nutrients that is entering into, I believe most tapeworms latch into the small intestine. And it causes pain, it causes discomfort, it makes you not necessarily want to eat because you feel like shit, your gut hurts. But you're starving. And this thing, I believe, I could be a little wrong on my parasitism here, but it'll send signals to your body that like you just kind of need more food. And so technically, yes, you are losing weight. It is something of a wonder pill. I am sure there were many men and women back in the day. I am not sponsored by Harmless Harvest. If you would like to sponsor, hey, come out here, shout out. I'm sure you guys don't spin anything. Yeah, I'm sure this fucking isn't just giant jizz or something. I've had so many people describe to me the taste of cum as being similar to coconut water. Having never tasted cum, I don't know, but there are certainly some coconut waters that are a little more, I could believe it. And Harmless Harvest is not one of them. Harmless Harvest is not a cum-tasting organic coconut water. No. You have to go for like a Vita Coco for one of those. And I think the reason why that one tastes a little different, a little weird, a little cum-like, is because of all the sugar that they add into it. Harmless Harvest, they don't add no sugars, not that I'm aware of at least. That said, we're done. But, that's one way to spin it. Say, hey, look, this is the least cum-tasting coconut water on the market right now. How's that spin working? Does that make you want to go buy Harmless Harvest? Does it? I'm just giving them a bunch of free advertising to all 20 viewers that I'm going to get on this. So hi, hello, and welcome to the Far Side. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what we could do to make this a more interesting and enjoyable experience for you. And by we, I mean me. Because I don't know, I like the royal we, but also I am not hopeless that this won't turn into something bigger with more people. That said, muting for burping. Unmuting to talk. Going back to the male beauty thing and the Looksmaxxing. So you have things that are spin on a diet pill. This diet pill being a fucking tapeworm. You don't hear that because the advertising at whatever this was, the 1920s, the 1880s, you just take this thing, it makes you lose weight. It's a miracle drug. They're putting all this spin on it, all this, careful language to try and make it as appealing to you to use their product. That is different than the pre-narrative seeding, which would be years and years of in this specific case, getting people to see parasites in a positive light, to see them as maybe they're not parasites. Maybe this is more a symbiotic thing because it keeps our weight down. And if you had been talking about how the symbiotic nature of humans and parasites and how it's really not as bad as all the crackpot doctors like to make you think, those quacks, those crackpot doctors before they had medical degrees that were worth a damn, just take the cocaine, it gets rid of the ghosts in your blood, as the meme goes. So that's pre-narrative seeding compared to spin. Spin, you take a thing after the fact and you give it clever advertising language, or you try and push the information through the narrative or the way you're telling it to shape how people are going to interpret it. So people on one hand can say, yes, eating a tapeworm is going to make you lose weight, but it's going to open you up to all these other problems. Or you spin it and you say, hey, you can eat this miracle pill and you're going to lose weight because that's just what happens when you eat this miracle pill. You just lose weight. That is technically a true statement. Is it a factually 100% accurate statement? No, because you're losing the weight due to tapeworm. Tapeworm, lose weight. Pre-narrative seeding would be, everyone should have a tapeworm. Tapeworms are like the dogs of the parasite world. They come when they're called. They don't leave too much of a mess. For the most part, they are housebroken. They're going to shit in your toilet just like you do. Great. And then, 3-4 years down the road, you have a bunch of people going, I'm struggling to lose this 5 pounds. Why don't I try one of these tapeworm diets? Just, take the tapeworm, take an anti-parasite 6 weeks afterwards. Boom. That would be pre-narrative seeding, because you're not spinning anything, but you're also neglecting to tell people some of maybe the more negative elements of just the facts at hand. One of the facts at hand, say with a tapeworm, is you might shit out most of the eggs. You might just pass them completely normally. It's totally fine. It's not a problem. Or one of those eggs gets kind of stuck in the folds of your large intestine, gets stuck behind a bunch of shit, and then it hatches or opens there, and you just have 100 little tapeworm babies at the end of your large intestine. And that can cause all kinds of problems. And, blockages in your intestines can cause sepsis. It's super, super, super not good for you. So that's the way that pre-narrative seeding leads people down certain decision-making thought patterns that are not in their best interest. But they have been primed through years of selectively put forward information that is not quite disinformation, but is not the whole truth, or is not all the facts at hand. So then that leads into how AI assisted selective uptake, meaning you can create something that is subjectively true in a timeline fashion, and say, by ingesting a large amount of real, verifiable sourced data, say around the Iran protests that were happening a few weeks ago, or around, we'll go back to our tapeworm analogy, or around tapeworms. And you just get all this data, all this amazing stuff, and you filter by narrative alignment rather than chronological completeness. So you go to the people or the information systems that are talking the most positive stuff about human parasite interactions or human tapeworm, success stories, I guess. And you just shell all those out rather than looking for any person who was, say, they lost 50 pounds, 70 pounds, they lost 200 pounds because of a tapeworm. And you just leave it there. End. Or you open the timeline to a place of completeness, chronological completeness, and you find out that out of that 5 sample size of people that lost a tremendous amount of weight due to this miraculous tapeworm drug, 2 of them had severe complications, had to be hospitalized, required surgery, and all kinds of crazy, heavy-duty, nuclear-level anti-parasitic drugs. And one of them died. Not one of the 2 that was hospitalized. One of the ones that didn't get hospitalized, they died, unfortunately, due to the complications of losing that much weight that quickly with a tapeworm inside your body. see how that can change the way people would view, say, this tapeworm drug, if all you're hearing is just article after blog post after Instagram reel after TikTok, where you just hear someone talking about this amazing time they had with this parasite and with this thing, and you don't hear anything of the chronological completeness, meaning, oh my God, this is what happened after the honeymoon phase. I started pooping out snakes. There were just literal spaghetti shooting out my ass every day. Because that is technically true. That is part of how parasites work, especially a tapeworm. But is that how you have been pre-narrative seeded through it? No, because you spent the last however many years just hearing about how great these tapeworms are. And then when you decide to look it up on social media, Google it on Llama or whatever Instagram puts forward as its AI, or you go into Claude, or you go into ChatGPT, or you go into Google and hit up the Gemini, and it just filters out all the bad, scary stuff about what happens, and it just gives you a dearth of information about how this helped them lose a lot of weight, how this helped them curb their appetite and their cravings for certain foods. And is that all factually correct? Yeah. Yeah, it is. That is what happened. However, it does seem to be that then you can have the inevitable conclusion of this, which the output of a timeline or set of talking points where every individual fact is true, but the selection and sequencing creates a falsely casual or causal or moral picture. Meaning, everyone who reads all these articles about how great tapeworms are, but none of, because of the way the landscape is, they're not getting any of the, I ate the tapeworm and 200, pounds shed off my body, but also I had a heart attack because of how much weight I lost so quickly. And, I stressed my body into a bunch of other issues. Now I've got nervous system issues from the weight loss, but also from the parasites and how, they caused issues with my large intestine and lower abdomen. A lot of pain, a lot of swelling. But that came 6 months after I lost the weight because I never got rid of the tapeworm. I figured it's the tapeworm. It must be my friend. Look at how much it's helped me. And then every time I went online to look up, can tapeworms be hurtful to you? Every AI I spoke to just gave me something about how it's amazing. And then the inevitable next step there, considering how many AI we have these days and how much better they are getting at convincing us with information that seems real, that we sort of maybe even want to believe. It can take advantage of our desire for confirmation bias or our desire to, find that magical cure. Because I think that is one of the biggest ways in which propaganda like this is most susceptible to getting past people's defenses, is they tell them something that they really, on a deeper level, want to hear. They want to hear that this is the way this is happening, or they want to hear that this is their magical cure. This is the silver bullet that's going to get rid of the thing that they have been struggling with for years and years. So then you have a bunch of AI-generated propaganda, whether it be AI blog posts or AI videos of someone talking about, oh my God, my tapeworm, it was so amazing. And then look, it just one day just detached, and there they are holding this AI-generated tapeworm that's acting like some version of a puppy and a snake, just kind of crawling all over them and giving little tapeworm kisses on the face and just segments writhing all over the body. Yeah, it's disgusting. It's covered in their shit, but at least it's their shit. And it says like, oh my God, it came out of my body and it looked like a dog. Or it acted like a dog, looked like a snake. It's my new snake butt. And the way that the AI and the actors and AI actors can quickly and cheaply generate articles that convey a single narrative while varying enough in style, in wording, and increasing the amount, thus increasing the volume of propaganda or of false information or half information, malinformation. There's all kinds of words for it now. increasing the volume of propaganda while making it harder to detect, since articles that vary in style and wording make it look more like real people or genuine news sources. Or in terms of the op-ed section or the opinion section, many videos. If you have a bunch of videos being created, and we're seeing this right now on social media, sans tapeworms, but in other aspects, I've seen it with like filter things, I've seen it with clothing stuff, or the one that I keep seeing that is probably the most germane to this actual definition is it'll be like some young pretty lady crying, or it's some old man just also crying, really trying to hit that like pathos thing. And it's talking about how, you'll stay and watch a girl dance or do a TikTok, but no one will stay and watch my quilt videos. And I have seen the exact same man crying in multiple videos, that then the next thing is like him or an older person or just an AI person holding up like a big towel or a big blanket that looks like a quilt, but it's obviously a factory-made quilt. This is not something that this man is making by hand. Or these like little metal Lego guys that I have no idea how they are not complete copyright infringement, but I guess that's China for you. So you have someone going, I just can't believe it. And then there's someone sitting at the forge and pouring the metals into the crucibles and coming out with these little metal Lego guys that you can sword fight with, and they can be riding a dragon and all kinds. I mean, it's kind of fun, sure. But I have seen that guy or that woman and then a bevy of products that they are claiming are their passion project, and that if you only stayed and interacted with a few buttons, you would be saving my business. You would be causing these things. And that hits us in like a deep kind of subconscious place of, oh, this must be real. Especially if you're not taking the time to look at all these other advertisements that are more or less the exact same, using the exact same format, using some sort of AI person or someone's stolen video and dubbing it or doctoring it to make it look as much like a true-to-life ad as possible. And then that makes people go, well, look at all these sad old men on Instagram. They like, I gotta support their stuff. This is terrible. And then when you scroll to the next one, the next thing you see is something talking about how Bad Bunny is secretly a terrorist, and I hated the Bad Bunny show, and the Bad Bunny superhero Super Bowl halftime show was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. How dare women with fat booties twerk? It is disgusting to my sensibilities. I question your sensibilities, but whatever, that's just me. And look, there is something in people that we have not adequately identified, in my opinion, nor reconciled as to how much we sort of need confirmation bias, how much that sort of may have been quite protective for us in the past when technology moved a lot slower, when information moved a lot slower, because having some element of confirmation bias means that you're less likely, maybe theoretically, to be taken advantage of by some newcomer to your area, because you know the area and you know what all the people around you are saying. And then it also goes into the deeply primal thing, not of the confirmation bias, but of how if a bunch of people are all saying the same thing in your village, your tribe, your small town, your small feudal nation state, whatever this is, the tribal nation, your island, if everyone's kind of saying the same thing, in effect, that makes a thing true. Hey, don't walk over there because there's a bunch of poisonous coral that will eat your foot off if you step on it, and it'll infect you with the hot poison, and you lose your foot. That's just what happens every time. Usually something like that comes from someone going out and getting their foot massively infected, maybe needing to get amputated, or maybe just dying, or maybe their foot just rotted off and fell off. And then everyone in that island just goes and tells the same story because, hey, that's That's dangerous. We don't want anyone else to get out there and lose their foot. We've got a finite amount of people. We don't need to lose anyone to something that could be a very avoidable thing, especially if you know that coral, for whatever reason, really only sits over there. Everyone says the same thing. You, as a newcomer to this island, maybe you're here to trade, and you've got some things from the other island, and you're like, hey, I've got all these really cool snake skins, and I want to give you guys my snake skins, but I need to get back at some point and launch the boat, but I've got a few weeks here. Everyone on that island says, hey, check it out. This place is beautiful. There are a couple things to watch out for. Don't go over there. That's where the poison coral is, and if it bites you, it'll just destroy your foot. You'll rot off and you'll die. And, don't anger the spirits out there in that water. So you hear something, it's not scientific. We're, pretty spoiled with science in the modern day. You just hear everyone tell you the exact same thing about how over there is really dangerous. So what do? You assume it is dangerous, and you assume what everyone is telling you is true. Now let's progress tens of thousands of years past that point, which is essentially a Stone Age culture trying to figure out what is safe and what is dangerous around them. Now we're in the modern day, and you have tens of thousands of people on social media saying, do not wander out into the shallows of the Fijian islands without paying very close attention to cone snails. What are cone snails, you might ask? Cone snails are a little snail that's maybe about the size of my thumb in terms of length. Like, they're not very big, but they're very pretty. They are very pretty, like snails, and the shells are just gorgeous. That snail has a little harpoon that it can shoot out with like an incredibly potent neurotoxin that when I was there once upon a time, they sort of told you, hey, if you get stung by this, you have like a half hour before you just die. And it's like, okay. Everyone told me that when I was there. There was not one person that did not tell me, watch out for the cone snails. Because no one really wants to see someone get murked by a fucking snail, but also no one really wants to have that like death right in front of them on their soul and their conscience, period. And that is information that still gets repeated on social media these days. Hey, what's a cone snail? Real poisonous. So it creates a confirmation bias in our head that that thing is poisonous, that everyone is telling us this thing because that's poisonous. That's how it is. But on the other side, then you have thousands upon thousands and thousands of bots or fake accounts or whatever telling us how everyone in Iran really wanted the Ayatollah dead, really just wanted him wiped off the planet, his entire family line just gone. They do not want to deal with this regime. They want regime change. We are primed because of the many tens of thousands of years of, hey, don't go over there because the coral's going to rot off your foot. Don't touch that pretty shell because it's going to kill you. Hey, just don't go into that cave. There's wolves. Big-ass bears live in those woods over there. Just, you're better off not tempting it unless you go in there with a lot of armor. So then we go on the internet. Our brains are in this like tool solving thing because that's how our phones work these days. It puts us in this like tool small puzzle mindset. That's why we don't filter things into our long-term memory very well when we are doing this, unless, say it with me, it has an emotional charge. Yay! The stuff that has an emotional charge while we're fucking doom scrolling or while we're doing the thing and the tasks and solving the little problems of, oh, I got to get to this thing. And what about over here? And how about this app? And that's why one reason it's tunnel visions us and sucks us into it so much and so well. But again, it goes straight into my emotional thing of, I just saw a bunch of people in what looks like Tehran that look like videos of them getting shot by masked thugs. And I go on Telegram, I see a bunch more of these type of videos. I go on social media, other types of things. I check out some independent news sources. They're also saying, hey, look at these videos. It's crazy. We don't know what's happening. That's what like a good journalist will do in the modern day fog of war. They go, hey, these are videos of what appears to be protesters and what appear to be some kind of masked armed thugs that are attacking the protesters. We don't know what's happening there, but the way that propaganda played out in terms of AI-assisted selective uptake is you have one side, say like anyone that's probably pro-Iran or pro that original regime, that has a vested interest in telling the world those are Israeli agents, every single one of them, because that will communicate to their citizens that, hey, you've got these Israeli guys coming after you and trying to start a bunch of shit. Don't listen to them. Don't participate in these protests because the Israelis want you to do this. Where if you're looking at it from like the American internet, US, Canada, Mexico, everything is, oh my God, look at these noble protesters and look at these masked policemen, thug criminals that the regime that they're fighting against. Look at the way that they're brutalizing them, that they're attacking them, that they're killing them. And we just sort of, because we're seeing thousands upon thousands of posts or similar posts hundreds of times through different outlets that seem like they're real. And I've been getting more and more of this. Sometimes people send it to me where it is a like 2-word, 3-word. Right now it's like I keep getting articulated history or some version of, history photographed, where it's like a very simple wording. It's like, okay, that's interesting. And then it will just put out like a bunch of memes all the time with videos, and, it'll put out a bunch of like kind of niche, almost quasi-conspiratorial stuff a lot of times, in which it's taking like the Strait of Hormuz and going, well, this is the British did this. This was actually the British. It wasn't Iran. It's like, okay, I don't know if I buy that. But if you see that a dozen times, a couple dozen times, a couple hundred times, it's just a knee-jerk human reflex to go, well, maybe there is something to that. Maybe that is real. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't really know what the truth is because I'm pretty far away on it. And hey, I mean, it seems like official channels aren't giving me the truth. So I have to look in these unofficial channels. And I think because of confirmation bias, we're a little more prone to not recognizing that our algorithm is feeding stuff to us that keeps us on the app. And people are going to try and propagandize us through our social media. Okay. Does anybody have like a testicle pain that just goes from one testicle to then transfers over to the other, and now I'm worried I have like cancer or something? Going to the doctor and getting my balls checked. That's going to be exciting. So then you get into the LLM grooming. LLM grooming being a term coined by the American Sunlight Project in 2025 that works by flooding the open web, which is where large language models and AI, they call it crawl, or I really say troll, or trawl, kind of like what you do trying to catch fish, or those big ghost nets that sweep through and they collect everything, and then they train on that information that they sweep with the dragnet. So if you feed the internet a bunch of low-quality, false, or selectively true content, then the AI systems or LLMs that subsequently reproduce those narratives as fact when they are questioned. So it's not that necessarily the AI that you're talking to is wrong. It's that everything that the AI has been fed up until that point is not 100% correct. And then it, by virtue, in the same way that like if you talk to someone who's woefully misinformed and they give you everything that they're saying, they think they're right. They don't know that they're not right, but they've also been reading, I don't know, everything Alex Jones has been saying and not realizing that some of it might be false. So then they think everything that Alex Jones says is 100% gospel truth, and you go, well, that's kind of how you got poisoned. Some of this stuff might be true, but also Alex Jones could very well be a disinformation agent that is somehow sitting there trying to capture conspiracy theorists and conspiracy, because wasn't his dad in the CIA? I love how he has some family connection to the CIA, and everyone's like, "There's no way he's in it," and it's like, really, you guys all accuse Tucker of being in it. Why wouldn't this crazy guy on the other side be some version of the same thing as Tucker Carlson or any of these other propaganda mouthpieces for the U.S. government? Oh, he's not Tucker's not the propaganda guy. Look at how he's. Oh man, he's a sweet little folksy guy with his little. He took off his bow tie and now he wears a fishing vest. Okay, so you're telling me that the guy who all of a sudden decided that he needs to cozy up to Joe Rogan's audience, so he decides to become a fly fisherman and start posting it everywhere, is not grooming his appearance or his audience for maximum suggestibility? Drink Harmless Harvest. Doesn't take that much like cum. Again, I don't really know what that tastes like, but everyone keeps telling me that, so I'm rolling with it. Could that be me having been fed false information to change a narrative? Maybe Big Coconut Water is out here trying to make this the best coconut water possible, and that's why I've heard from so many different sources, this is the one that tastes the least like cum. Are they wrong? They don't know. They've just been fed the information. They heard from someone that it's the least cum tasting one, and then they reproduce that information. And then here I am giving a sponsorless shout out to this Harmless Harvest doesn't taste like cum coconut water. But if you go online, you Google, does coconut water taste like cum? And there's hundreds of thousands of articles all saying the same thing. Totally tastes like cum. Totally tastes like cum. Does that change your taste of the beverage next time you go drink it? Legitimate question. I actually don't know, because I, again, don't know what that tastes like. But, like, if you tell someone over and over and over and over again, and then from hundreds of thousands of sources where they can just go Google, and it's like, wow, 200,000 articles all about this? Fuck, I'm wrong. Like, I guess I'm wrong. And then you go drink the coconut water again, and you kind of, like, trick yourself into going, You know, I never really thought of it before like that, but yeah, it does kind of taste like cum. And then we get into the Mandela effect, which is more or less just a massive psyop being done on both the American population and the world's population to see how suggestible we are, but also, in the coconut water analogy, how often people will go back and distrust their memory when they are presented with a new set of information. Say like the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia. We now know, and I always knew, that thing had a little brown cornucopia at the end. And then all of a sudden there was some branding change at some point in like the 2000s or 2010s, and it stopped having the cornucopia logo. But when people went to the official website and the official people all said no, there was never a cornucopia. Okay, well, a bunch of people dug up their old Fruit of the Loom shirts, and they saw a cornucopia on the logo. So who's right? The people that have the cornucopia thing, or the people that are currently working for Fruit of the Loom, who probably have no idea as to the reality of the situation and are just doing what they are doing because they're a cog in the machine of Fruit of the Loom, not realizing that the CIA and we have like 30 3-letter intelligence agencies, 4-letter intelligence agencies, could have possibly, as a form of intelligence and testing a mass psychological operation on its people, put forward a bunch of sort of false information or changing something from our childhood just a little bit, and then going and talking to the official people that work for the thing, say Fruit of the Loom, and going, hey, you guys are doing this now. You're just doing this now. Or we're going to investigate the fuck out of you for tax fraud. Oops. Do you want to spend all your time getting audited? Because that's just what's going to happen. It's called leverage, people. Look it up. I mean, why do you think Epstein got so popular? Why do you think all those guys wanted on the island? I mean, at a certain point, it almost makes me feel like some of them wanted to be leveraged, if you know what I mean. So here we go into part 4. Large intro. Part of the reason I'm redoing the intro with all this is because when I went back and watched the live, it was really bad. It was really bad. It was awful. It was disgustingly awful. But maybe that's just me. Maybe it's my upload speed. Maybe it's my camera quality. Who knows? We'll find out at some point. My nuts hurt. So, narrative laundering, the credibility escalator. This is a process by which a false or misleading claim travels from an untrustworthy origin to a trusted platform through a series of apparently independent intermediary steps, each of which confesses or confers a greater legitimacy to the information or claim. The pathway looks something like this. You have a state-backed outlet, say Russia TV, RT, says something, and then that goes to a fringe blog. The fringe blog picks it up as Tinfoil Hat Conspiracy 101. Hey, look at this and all this bullshit, and it turns out that the Kremlin is trying to do this and that America's trying to do this. And then it goes to like an aggregator site, say, I don't know if BuzzFeed would be that, but something like BuzzFeed, where it's just constantly churning out these articles. And these articles really are more about creating engagement and creating some sort of recidivism with people visiting your site than it necessarily does with making people really go, aha, this is an amazing article. So then that aggregator site and whatever article it puts up turns into a social media discussion. Hashtags, people making reels about it or TikToks discussing it, people trying to do factual deep dives, people trying to look into whatever. And then it becomes secondary news reporting on it, claims circulating online. We're just going to switch our example up a little bit and go back to the Iran protests that were happening several weeks ago. Time is a flat circle. So you'll have like a OAN or, MSNBC 55 or KTLA Atlanta. Some version of something that's not one of the big top ones. But it says, claims circulating online that these protesters are actually being sponsored by Israel and that these protesters are being incited by Mossad sleeper cells and sleeper agents. Now, this has a two function based on that current thing I just said. One, it can be a way for, say, allies to talk about things they don't like their allies doing and seeding it into the information stream that way by putting it out to these aggregator, weird, whatever claims, or, you have someone make an offhand statement in a press release, say like with a lot of the alien releases recently, where all of a sudden you got people in the UFO communities or the UAPs, and they're talking about it in official government forums or in official state-backed outlets, and, literal congressional hearings. And then, who talks about that stuff? Weirdos like me on the internet. So there's your fringe. And we talk about, look at all this crazy shit. And then that gets picked up by the aggregator sites that talk about, whoa, look at all this new UFO disclosure. Now it's all UAPs. And it turns out we've got Commander Traver and all these other people that are definitely not intelligence assets talking about all this crazy shit going on with what they're seeing in the skies. Then your KTLA 27 talks about it, says, whoa, look at this, and then claims online are circulating of recent sightings that match what Commander Traver has said over Mexico. There are Tic Tacs being seen leaving the Mexican Sea off the, Baja California Sur. Again, that's speculation. I'm not saying that's what happened. But a mainstream outlet will then fact check, which inevitably names and amplifies the claim even if it is actively refuting it. So to go back to the Iran example, Wall Street Journal picks it up and goes, hey, we fact-checked this, and it turns out that some of those masked men are Israeli agents, potentially, maybe, and it turns out a lot more of those masked armed men running after protesters are actually thugs that are pro-regime thugs, or they are criminals that have been hired by the police to basically be like an extrajudiciary riot control as the Capitol spirals in descent. And some people are just going to say, oh, no, that's the actual police. They can't be running around in their uniforms, or they'll just get shot at, or they'll get stones thrown at them. So they have to run around in civilian clothes. So your Wall Street Journal is repeating all these potentially conspiratorial claims and refuting it at the same time, while steering the narrative with a fact check, if that makes sense. So you do the fact check, and then a bunch of people go, oh, this is true. Oh, it looks like they've done their homework, and it turns out it could be a bunch of different things, but it is most likely pro-regime thugs or pro-regime policemen pretending to be thugs. Then you have the AI chatbots all over, say your Claudes, say your OpenAI, your ChatGPTs, your Soras, your whatever, all kind of getting the same base information that then cite the fact check as the source. The fact check might not actually be correct. It's just what the editorialized legacy media elements come up with. So once a narrative has saturated fringe outlets and been widely laundered into the open source open information ecosystems, AI systems scraping and summarizing the content inevitably end up inadvertently reinforcing the falsehood. So the Storm 1516 operation provides a textbook example of a scripted side of this. Storm 1516 consistently launders narratives through video seeding scandalous claims from fake journalists and non-existent whistleblowers, and amplifying that disinformation via inauthentic websites. The Russian doppelganger operation added another refinement, creating websites that visually impersonate legitimate news outlets, Le Monde, Der Spiegel, etc., Al Jazeera, to give laundered content visual authority of known trusted sources. I have definitely seen and stumbled upon many of these, especially when you look into UFO stuff. You see a lot of stuff that is that kind of like doppelganger operation. And is that Russians trying to create disinformation about U.S. stuff because they're just chaos agents and that's just their job? They got to troll? Sure. If they make me laugh, all the better. But it's very easy to launder credibility through the internet, because it honestly, I think in the last 2 or 3 months, the internet went from being like 30 or 40% fake, or maybe like 50% fake, to easily being 80% fake. So dead internet theory is here, and most of it is not being created by living humans, but by AI, LLM, bots, and it's a problem because it makes finding out the truth very difficult. But also, I kind of don't think legacy institutions have helped themselves, because they are slaves to the 24-hour news cycle, just like everything else. And in the same way, I see a lot of people who are stuck making content, like myself, because we feel the need to do it for our other work that we're trying to do. Me with my, book writing stuff. You got to have that digital footprint. You got to have something that people can see and show. And it's like, here I am screaming about propaganda in Israel and all that stuff. And I can't imagine that any publisher is going to think this is a good idea and a successful gamble, a worthy cause to back. Next, astroturfing and coordinated inauthentic behavior. So this is how you see people like in the comment sections talking about whatever and trying to pretend to be like real people while smoothing out the information that they are being purported they want to talk about. The free press is fantastic at this. You go into that comment section, and I swear to you, every other comment in the free press's Instagram is a Israeli bot, is some Zio bot. And it's kind of fascinating to me, because I feel when I read those articles so talked down to, in a way that hurts their propaganda. It does. It hurts your Israeli pro-Zionist propaganda when you speak down to people. If anything, you should be inviting people in as co-conspirators or as Like, hey guys, look, we're kind of in a bind. Like, we really need this help that you're giving us. Not, hey guys, we're really in a bind, and like, you owe us this help. You owe us this help. Nothing. And your president, oh, our first Jewish president. Oh, how we love our first Jewish president. Oh, come on. You telling me that's not some form of coordinated, inauthentic behavior, that everyone who's starting to give money to Donald Trump starts talking about how he's this Jewish president? Like, do they believe that in their heart of hearts or in their private conversations? Absolutely fucking not. No, they don't. Are they going to tell you that while they're sitting on MSNBC or while they're doing some interview with Trump and OAN or Truth Social or fucking Twitter, name it? So to give you a more refined thingamabobber, the manufactured appearance of grassroots consensus, disinformation campaigns post overwhelming amounts of content with the same or similar messaging from several inauthentic accounts, a practice known as astroturfing. Astroturfing has been around for a while. This is nothing new. And you would see it in, say, like messaging that happened during COVID, or it was right before COVID. I can't remember. But it was around, there was that video where all the different news anchors all said the exact same thing. And you would see a video come out where it would be one person talking, and then it would be like a cell split, and another person talking, and another person talking, and another person talking, and another person talking. But they are all using the exact same script. That is a great example of astroturfing, because there is no way that is authentic information. And many of those small newsrooms had been bought by large corporate interests that are generally acting, if not the same way, in the same direction with similar aims and similar mechanisms by which to achieve their end goal, which is deceiving the people that watch their thing. Not overtly, not strong arm, but astroturfing. Because then if you go to another thing, it's like, oh, they're saying the exact same thing. It must be true. It must be true that we need to hunker down and treat everyone right and not do our own research and listen to the doctors and listen to all this stuff. I thought from a propaganda perspective, it was fascinatingly adept that whoever was controlling the narrative said, trust the experts. And then it didn't put experts about infectious disease, virality, none of it. It was all doctors that maybe some of them were research scientists on the side, but they're doctors. Their focus is on keeping people safe, as well as having a measurable, subconscious level trust with most people, because we know, hey, you go to the doctor, you're more than likely going to be seeing someone who's been vetted thoroughly, who is part of some sort of board that keeps their actions and behaviors in check and make sure that they're doing stuff in line with their oath and that they're helping people. Well, what if you get a bunch of doctors instead of virologists that say study viruses and how they do everything? Let's not talk to a single fucking virologist. Let's just have all these doctors on. No infectious disease experts, just doctors. Just doctors. I thought that was brilliant. That was brilliant astroturfing, because it proved to me that COVID was probably not nearly as deadly as they were saying. Was it deadly to some people? Yes, that is fact. Could there be a variety of reasons why that is so? Yes. It is the unfortunate nature of any new disease coming into the world that we do not have antibodies for, that we don't have any kind of defenses for and inbuilt into our bodies. And a lot of people are afraid that we may never, because this came from some lab somewhere, that we may not have the capability to create our own antibodies surrounding protecting us from this thing. That is, I think, a reasonable thing. Well, then you find out COVID-19, there's 18 other COVIDs, that we've probably dealt with some COVID in our human past at some point, and that the base program or the base architecture for antibodies is there. No, we didn't hear anything about that. We just heard trust the science, social distance, wear the mask, all these things that do not, I'm who am I talking to, but do not make sense for an upper respiratory infection. It just doesn't. I'm getting off my high horse, but notice how we don't talk about COVID anymore. Notice how we don't see bunches of people dying from COVID anymore. Is that because maybe we were lied to? Or is that maybe because no one told us the truth? That everyone just told us what we can do to be safe instead of telling us what the realistic path of this disease and this virus was going to be like? That it was going to be its most deadly initially. And then this thing, which apparently is very susceptible to just, if you have a good amount of vitamin D in your system, you're going to fight it off. Everyone stay inside, don't go outside, it's going to kill you. Interesting. That sounds to me a lot more like someone was trying to tell me to put myself into a place of high stress, low vitamin D, cortisol up the ass, cortisol spike, speaking of you Looksmaxxers, SIAs. And don't listen to the people that are going to tell you about this disease that might say something like, hey, this next year, we are just going to see a good number of people die to this because of the nature of this thing. Do everything you can to be as safe as you can around these vulnerable individuals. And we're probably going to have, good things coming to us. No. No. So you just create a wide impression of widespread grassroots support or opposition to the message while concealing its true origin. Say maybe creating the giant wealth transfer that happened during COVID. One of the greatest transfers of wealth in all of recorded human history happened during COVID. And it was from people like you and me. If you're watching this, I guarantee I'm not broadcasting to a bunch of billionaires. That all this stuff, you get it. You got it good. You get it, got it good, real good. You get it, got it good, even better. I don't know what I'm saying, but here's the thing. That's the point. You're not supposed to know what you're saying with that. So this similar tactic to astroturfing, which is flooding, involves spamming social media posts and comment sections with the intention of shaping a narrative or drowning out opposing voices. So to that point, when I go to Free Press and it is an article talking about Zionism, which the Israelis don't seem to realize that, we've had 10 to 20 years of anti-colonial messaging in the US. So anything that looks to us like colonialism is automatically not going to be very popular, especially to the younger generations. Maybe some of the boomers are getting it, but there's also a lot of boomers that I know that I've talked to that are pretty against dead children. If it's not genocide, why is it genocide shaped? Adequate question. I mean, heritage-wise, I'm Armenian. You want to talk about genocide? That was the first one where they were just like, that's so bad, we need a name for it. We need a name for this type of extermination of other humans. So again, Israel, the Palestinians, if not genocide, why genocide shape? Is it friend to genocide? Is it a cousin to genocide? Does that make it 50% genocide? It's genocide, but on the mother's side. That said, going back to the Free Press, every time I read a Free Press article, I go into the comment section, especially if it is about Zionism, and I see a bunch of comments all on the top that all have hundreds of likes that are completely drowning out any negative discussion or any contrary discussion to Zionism and some of the problems that it's actively creating in our world. And it just... squeezes it out, gives it a little bit of get out of here, And again, it's a thing that just get rid of it. Like you're trying to blow a little bit of bullshit off your microphone. You just give it a. That's all it is. You just get a bunch of bots to go into the comment section and just give a little and say, look at how great it is that we're talking about this. Judging from all these negative comments, we really need some positive conversations about Zionism. Yeah, you're allowed to have that positive conversation. I just don't think you're a real fucking person. But you never know. I've seen plenty of videos of Israelis dancing in bomb shelters, and, you know, hey, that's a great way to approach getting bombed, but also I think that's fucking psychotic. To have like a Halloween celebration while you're getting the shit bombed out of you and torpedoed. You know, the triumph of the human will and spirit, I suppose, but it also shows how deeply propagandized the Israeli people have been in recent years. And again, they're not getting the woke programming, anti-colonial, treat everyone as equal stuff that we've been getting. They've been getting super hardcore. They are going to exterminate us unless we do this type propaganda. And that changes a lot of how a people acts. Unfortunately, they need the U.S. public opinion on their side. And they're going about it in such a, in my opinion, disrespectful, talking down to you, stupid goyim type of way, that it fundamentally creates a, like, I think, knee-jerk reaction away in a lot of people where they're like, you're talking down to me and you want me to follow your cause. Ugh. Just like gross. Ugh. Especially, like, who would have thought Americans don't, just people in general, don't like seeing photos and videos of people being bombed into fucking smithereens. It's just, whoa, who would have thought? That's why I thought, like, Obama was probably our last, like, good legacy media, monopolistic, you know, the monolith of culture propaganda president. Why? Because if the Iraqis had social media and cell phones the same way that people did during the fall of Aleppo in 2016 or 2017, with the invasion of Mosul in 2014, with the invasion of the Ukraine, with what's going on in Gaza and the West Bank with the Palestinians, what's happening to the Myanmar people, I'm blanking on the group that was being attacked in Myanmar, but with those people, or with the Sudanese in the Congo, the DRC, like, most people find visions of genocide or wholesale murder, slaughter, utterly abhorrent. All right, you following me here? So if the Iraqis had cell phones and social media in 2008, 2010, when he decided we're just drone bombing all this shit, do you think he would be as popular of a president? And one way that they astroturfed his fucking war crimes beautifully was by giving him a Nobel Peace Prize before he did anything in office. Like, that was incredible propaganda that I remember being a teenager and seeing that and just being like, oh, fuck, I voted for the wrong guy. Not that I wanted McCain to win. I did not. But after Obama, I have not voted for a single president. I write my name in. I write my name in the thing, and I write Han Solo as my running mate, and I have done that since Obama Part 1. Maybe I did it in Part 2. I can't really remember. But Obama was the last president I voted for because of that. Because I saw all the things that happened, and I heard about all these ways that kids were getting killed and bombed, and it was like, how did this just completely have a sea change between Bush and Obama? Is it because Obama was cleaning up Bush's mistakes? Or is it right-wing, left-wing, same bird trying to shit on the heads of every Middle Eastern oil-bearing country? I don't know. But what I do know What I do absolutely know, 100%, doing my Bibi Netanyahu finger shake wag, is that if the Iraqis had social media and cell phones in the same way that the Palestinians do today, in the same way that the Iranian people today have, although there is internet blackouts that make that much more difficult, follow me here, I do not think Obama would be nearly as popular of a president as he is remembered fondly today. Period. So we'll get more into the prison break next week, or I might just do another video here later this week as we go into a couple other different things. For example, the fire hose of falsehood, the epistemic exhaustion. We get into personalized micro-targeting and precision persuasion, malinformation, or the weaponizing of true facts, and specifically into operations of propaganda that are happening today. So thank you for joining me on this recap. You're wonderful. You're a mensch. You're lovely. And, you know, you put time into listening to this. So I hope you feel just that much more prepared to take on anything involving the internet right now, because it is so full of lies. It is mind-blowing to me. I'm having friends and family sending me stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, guys, follow me down the rabbit hole. You're not going to sleep well for the next 5 years. But after you get out of those 5 years, you're going to have a much greater appreciation for the human animal and how fucking wacky we are. That said, like, share, comment, subscribe. If, you know, you got to say those words or apparently the algorithm doesn't like you as much. But truly, if you have any criticism, constructive or otherwise, in ways that I can make this a more interesting show, podcast, whatever the fuck this is, please let me know. I would appreciate hearing it. And yeah, much love. I don't know you, so I don't love you. If I do know you, I probably love you. In which case, hope you tune in later when we go into part 3 of all of this. And that said, you know, now is probably a great time to take everything you see and read on social media with a hefty grain of salt, including this video. I am not the final arbiter of all that is good nor true in the world of propaganda, but neither are you.